The stars have always been patient teachers, if only we possess the wisdom to listen. They burn for billions of years, silent and constant, watching civilizations rise from dust and return to it. They witnessed the first Valori ships breach the void between worlds, when humanity's ancestors still huddled in caves, fearing the darkness. They watched us build an empire that spanned 3,000 systems, and they watch now as that empire crumbles like ash in a cosmic wind. My name is Kithris Vorahan, and I have served the Valori Ascendancy for 217 of your human years. I was old when your species first split the atom. I was ancient when you took your first tentative steps beyond your birth world. And now, as I stand aboard this human station orbiting a world you call Europa, I feel something I have not experienced in over a century.
Fear. Not the sharp, immediate fear of battle. That I know well. This is something deeper, colder, more profound. It is the fear of understanding, far too late, that everything I believed about the universe was wrong. But I am getting ahead of myself. To understand what humanity is, you must first understand what we were, what we lost, and why I stand here now, an emissary of a dying civilization, begging for help from a species we once dismissed as barely sentient.
The Valori Ascendancy rose 12,000 years before humanity discovered fire. We were the first of the elder races to achieve faster-than-light travel, the first to map the spiral arms of this galaxy, the first to establish the concord of civilizations that would govern interstellar relations for millennia. Our ships were works of art. Our cities floated among the clouds of gas giants. Our philosophers had answered questions that younger species had not yet learned to ask.
We were, in our own estimation, the pinnacle of galactic evolution. When our long-range sensors first detected organized electromagnetic signals from the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star, we noted it with mild academic interest. Another primitive species discovering radio waves. They would take thousands of years to develop interstellar capability if they survived that long. Most didn't. The universe is not kind to young civilizations. We logged your existence and moved on to more pressing matters. That was less than 300 of your years ago. A heartbeat by Valori standards. Barely enough time for one of our children to complete their primary education. In that heartbeat, you went from radio waves to fusion drives. From your first orbital platform to colonies on 4 worlds, from tentative first contact with the Rilari traders to a recognized, if minor, member of the Concord. Some of us noticed. Some of us warned. I remember Ambassador Thelos Vikren addressing the High Council 60 of your years ago. I was young then, merely an adjutant, tasked with recording the proceedings. Thelos had just returned from a diplomatic mission to your solar system, a routine courtesy visit to the newest members of the Concord.
They are not like the others, he said, and I remember the way his voice resonated with something I did not recognize at the time. Now I know it was the first whisper of that same fear I feel today. The Rilari developed over 40,000 years. The Kethar took 60,000. We ourselves required nearly 100,000 years to achieve what these humans have accomplished in mere centuries.
High Counselor Mathis Vorthan,
My own grandfather, though that relationship brought me no favor in his eyes, dismissed the concern with a wave of his lower appendages. Speed of development is not an indicator of potential, Ambassador. The humans have simply had the advantage of observing more advanced civilizations. They are mimics, nothing more. Clever apes who learn to copy their betters.
With respect, High Counselor, I do not believe that is accurate, Thelos pressed. I spent 3 cycles among them. I observed their social structures, their decision-making processes, their resilience. They have a concept they call spite. It is difficult to translate precisely, but it refers to the act of persisting, of succeeding, purely to prove wrong those who said they could not.
Charming, Mathis replied, and the council chamber rippled with the Valori equivalent of condescending laughter. A species motivated by childish defiance. How terrifying.
Thelos did not laugh. I am placing a formal recommendation in the council archives, he said. It reads as follows. Do not provoke humanity. Do not underestimate them. Do not, under any circumstances, give them a reason to turn their full attention to war.
The laughter stopped. Several counselors exchanged glances that I, in my youth, could not interpret. "You genuinely fear them?" Mathis said, and his tone made it clear he found this absurd. A species that cannot even agree among themselves how to govern their own homeworld? A species that still practices economic competition, individual accumulation of resources, that has not transcended the primitive concept of nations. You fear these creatures? I fear what they could become, Fellows answered. I fear what they could do if they ever united, if they ever turned outward with the same ferocity they turn upon each other. He paused, and in the silence of the recording I can still hear the weight of his next words. High Counselor, in their brief history, they have survived 5 extinction-level events. They have turned every disadvantage into strength, every scarcity into innovation, every conflict into progress. They are not like us.
They are not like any species in the Concord. They are something new, something we do not yet understand.
Your recommendation is noted, Mathis said, in the tone that meant it would be filed and forgotten. Is there anything else? There was not. The loss left the chamber, and I never saw him again. He died 40 years ago, peacefully, in his sleep. I often wonder if he saw this coming, if he dreamed of what we would become.
What we have become.
I am tired. The journey here took 11 days, which is 9 days longer than it should have taken. Our once proud vessel, the Ascendant's Grace, limped through space on backup systems, trailing atmosphere from a hull breach we could not fully seal. 40 crew members died before we reached human space. 43 more died in the hours after we arrived, from injuries too severe for our depleted medical supplies. We came with a fleet of 300 ships. 27 survived to reach this station.
The humans did not gloat. They did not demand explanations. They simply helped. Their medical teams came aboard within hours, working alongside our own physicians with a competence that surprised me. They asked permission before examining our wounded. They learned our protocols, adapted to our needs, and never once made us feel like supplicants. It was, in its own way, more unsettling than mockery would have been.
I'm standing now at a viewport in the human station's observation deck. They call it the Quiet Room, and there is something almost sacred about the space. No advertisements, no information displays, no constant hum of productivity. Just the stars and the great orange-brown face of Jupiter below, and silence.
A human woman enters. She is older, perhaps 50 of their years, with gray streaking through dark hair and lines around her eyes that suggest a life of difficult decisions. She wears a simple uniform, navy blue, minimal insignia. I have learned that humans often understate their importance through appearance. The more powerful they are, the less they display it.
Ambassador Kethris, she says, and her pronunciation of my name is imperfect but earnest. I'm Admiral Chen. May I join you?
I gesture assent. She moves to stand beside me, not too close, not too far, respectful of my space, while making clear she is not intimidated by my presence. She says nothing for several long moments, simply gazing at the stars.
Your people have a saying. I offer because the silence feels heavy with expectation, that the stars are the campfires of those who came before. I find it surprisingly poetic for a species so young.
She smiles slightly. We've had a lot of practice staring at the sky and wondering. It's in our nature to look up and ask questions. A pause. What does your species see when they look at the stars?
History, I answer. Conquest, territory. The stars are markers of achievement, each point of light a world we have touched, shaped, claimed. I hesitate, then add, or lost.
She does not react to that admission, does not pounce on the opening, the weakness. She simply nods, slowly, as if she genuinely understands. That must be difficult, she says, watching things you built being taken away.
The simplicity of her empathy catches me off guard. I am accustomed to diplomatic maneuvering, to words chosen for advantage. This feels different, genuine, and therefore far more dangerous.
Difficult, I repeat. Yes, that is one word for it. Would you tell me what happened? It is not a demand, not even truly a request. It is an offer, a door left open. I could walk through it or turn away, and she would accept either choice. I find myself walking through.
They came from the void between galaxies, I begin. We had always believed intergalactic space to be empty, not just of life, but of possibility. The distances were too vast, the resources too scarce. No civilization could cross the gulf. It was settled science, consensus.
But they did.
They did. I close my eyes and I see it again. The first reports, the disbelief, the way disbelief curdled into horror. We do not know what they call themselves. Our linguists have been unable to decode their communications, if they communicate at all in any way we recognize. We call them the hollow, because that is what they leave behind. Hollow worlds, hollow ships, hollow bodies.
Admiral Chen is silent, but I feel her attention sharpen. They do not conquer, I continue. They do not negotiate. They do not even seem to notice us as beings worthy of notice. They simply harvest. Planets, stations, fleets. They strip everything of value, matter, energy, even information, we believe, and move on, leaving husks, shells, hollows.
How long? 18 months by your calendar. In that time they have consumed 47 Valori worlds, 16 Cathar colonies, 22 Relari stations. The Mendari hegemony no longer exists. Their entire civilization, 400 billion souls, gone in a matter of weeks. I pause.
The numbers are so large they become abstract. I try again.
My daughter lived on Valor Prime, our home world. She had 2 children, my grandchildren. They were learning to sing when the Hollow came. My voice does not break. I am too exhausted for that. We received one final transmission from the planetary defense grid. 17 seconds of static and screaming, then nothing. The world did not even appear on our sensors anymore, just empty space, as if it had never existed.
Admiral Chen's hand moves slightly, as if she wants to reach out, but stops herself. "I'm sorry," she says. "I'm so sorry." 2 words. Human words. Simple and small. And yet I feel something crack inside me. Some barrier I had built to survive the journey here. My eyes burn with tears I have not permitted myself to shed.
The Concord responded, of course, I say, forcing myself to continue. We assembled the largest fleet in galactic history, 12,000 vessels from 17 species, the combined military might of all civilized space.
What happened? The battle lasted 4 hours. I can still hear the screams across the communication channels. The confusion, the despair. We destroyed nothing. We damaged nothing. Our weapons, our tactics, our technology, everything we had developed over 100,000 years of civilization, it was meaningless. They did not even alter course. They simply continued forward, and everything in their path ceased to exist.
I turned to face her then, this small human woman with her simple uniform and her quiet eyes. 9,000 ships, I say. 9,000 ships destroyed. 3 billion crew members gone in 4 hours.
She meets my gaze without flinching. There is no judgment in her eyes, no satisfaction, no fear, just listening, understanding. "Why did you come here?" she asks finally. "To us?" It is a fair question, a logical question. Why would a dying empire seek help from a species we had dismissed as primitive? Why would we humble ourselves before creatures we had once considered barely worthy of notice? Because we have run out of options, I admit. Because every other species in the Concord is either dead, dying, or hiding. Because the Hollow are moving toward the galactic core, and your space lies in their path. And even if you cannot help us, you deserve to know what is coming. I blink. "I'm sorry?" "There's something else," she says. Not accusing, just certain. "You came to us specifically. Not just to warn, not just for help. There's another reason." I do not know how she knows. Humans are young, but they are not stupid. They read faces, body language, the subtle weight of unspoken words. They have spent their entire evolutionary history trying to understand each other, and that skill translates, it seems, across species. "Ambassador Thelos Vikran," I say finally. "Before he died, he gave me a message. He said that if the Valori ever faced extinction, if we ever ran out of hope, we should seek out humanity. He said," I hesitate because the words seem absurd, desperate, foolish. "He said you would know what to do, that you always know what to do when your backs are against the wall." Admiral Chen is quiet for a long moment. Then she does something I do not expect. She laughs, not cruelly, not dismissively. A small, rueful sound, as if remembering something bittersweet. "Your ambassador Thalos," she says, "did he ever visit Earth? The surface, I mean, not just the orbital stations."
I believe so, yes. He spent several months there during his diplomatic mission.
Do you know what he saw?
I shake my head.
He saw museums, she says. Specifically, he visited every war memorial on 6 continents. He walked through Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He stood at Verdun and Stalingrad. He toured the Holocaust memorials in Europe, the killing fields in Cambodia, the genocide museums in Rwanda. He spent 3 weeks in the American Southwest studying the history of the indigenous peoples there.
She turns back to the viewport, her reflection ghostly against the stars.
He asked one of our historians, a woman named Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, who's still alive and still teaching, by the way. He asked her why we preserved these places, why we built monuments to our worst moments, our greatest failures, our most terrible crimes against ourselves.
What did she say?
She said, because we never want to forget what we're capable of, the good and the bad, the heroic and the monstrous. We keep these places so that every generation understands the full weight of what it means to be human.
Admiral Chen looks at me, and in her eyes I see something I cannot name, something old and tired and unbreakable.
Ambassador Thal'Vex asked her one more question before he left Earth. He asked, "But how do you continue? How do you look at all this suffering, all this violence, all this evidence of your own darkness, and still find the strength to move forward?"
And?
Dr. Okonkwo smiled at him, and she said, "Because we don't know how to stop. Because we tried to destroy ourselves 100 times, and every time someone refused to give up. Because the same species that built the gas chambers also built hospitals. The same hands that wielded weapons learned to wield scalpels. We are everything, the best and the worst, and we have decided over and over again that the best is worth fighting for."
She pauses.
Your ambassador left Earth that day, and apparently he spent the rest of his life watching us from afar, waiting to see what we would become.
He believed in you, I say, and the admission costs me more than I expected.
He believed in something, Admiral Chen agrees. I don't know if we're what he hoped for. I don't know if we can help you, but I know we're going to try. She straightens slightly, and I see the transformation, the shift from philosopher to commander. I need you to tell me everything you know about the Hollow, their movements, their patterns, their weaknesses, if they have any. I need data, Ambassador. All of it.
We have tried everything.
You've tried everything your civilization knows, she interrupts gently. That's not the same thing.
And there it is, the arrogance that so many of my people saw in humans, that made us dismiss them as upstarts and fools. But now, standing here, I realize it is not arrogance at all. It is something else entirely.
Confidence, the bone-deep certainty of a species that has survived everything it has thrown at itself and expects to survive everything else, too.
I should find it foolish, naive. Instead, I find it terrifying.
And impossibly, I find it comforting.
Over the following days, I watch the humans work. It is not what I expected. I had anticipated chaos, panic, the frantic scrambling of a young species confronted with extinction. Instead, there is a calm that borders on eerie. Information flows through their networks with quiet efficiency. Meetings are held, decisions are made, resources are allocated. No screaming, no posturing, no political maneuvering for advantage, just work. I am assigned a liaison, a young officer named Commander David Okonkwo. Yes, the grandson of the very historian Ambassador Thal'Vex met decades ago.
Humans seem to find meaning in such coincidences. They call it poetry.
David is unfailingly polite. He answers my questions without condescension, explains human concepts without making me feel primitive, and never once refers to the Valori's long history of dismissing his species. If he harbors resentment, he hides it perfectly.
This, too, is unsettling.
"You are not angry," I say to him one evening as we review the Hollow's movement patterns on a holographic display. "Your people are not angry. We ignored you for centuries. We mocked Ambassador Thalos when he tried to warn us. We called you clever apes in our council chambers, and now you treat us with kindness. Why?" David considers the question. He is young by human standards, perhaps 30, but there is a steadiness in him that reminds me of much older beings.
What would anger accomplish, he asks. Would it bring back your homeworld? Would it help us defeat the Hollow? Would it make any of this easier?
No, but it would be understandable, natural.
Maybe. He adjusts the display, zooming in on the Hollow's projected path. But we've had a lot of practice letting go of anger when survival is on the line. Grudges are expensive. They take energy, attention, resources. We can't afford them right now. Neither can you.
That seems remarkably mature for a species so young.
David laughs. "We're not mature, trust me. We're just pragmatic. There's a difference." He looks at me, and for a moment the professional mask slips. I see something raw beneath. My grandmother told me about meeting Ambassador Thalos. She said he was the first alien who ever really listened to her, who treated humans as worth understanding, not just cataloging. She respected him. So did my family. When we heard the Valori were in trouble, he shrugs. "This isn't politics. It's personal."
I do not know what to say to that. In Valori culture, personal feelings are kept separate from matters of state. The idea that a human officer would help my dying civilization because his grandmother had a meaningful conversation with one of our ambassadors is alien in the most literal sense.
"Show me the data again," I say finally, because I do not have words for what I am feeling. The energy signatures before each Hollow attack. "We work late into the night. David brings me something called coffee, which is bitter and unpleasant, but provides a startling boost to mental clarity. Humans, I am learning, have built their civilization on controlled chemical stimulation. They are a species of addicts who have harnessed their addictions for productivity."
It should be appalling. Instead, I find myself requesting a second cup.
On the 5th day, I am summoned to a meeting. Not a small meeting. This is the full human strategic command gathered in a vast chamber deep within the Europa Station. Admirals, generals, scientists, political leaders. I recognize Admiral Chen near the center, but there are dozens of others, representing factions and nations and organizations I cannot identify. I am the only alien in the room.
Admiral Chen nods to me as I enter. "Ambassador, thank you for joining us. We wanted you to hear this directly."
A young woman, a scientist judging by her attire, steps forward. Her name, I learn later, is Dr. Yuki Tanaka. She is nervous but controlled, and she speaks with the precision of someone who has rehearsed this moment many times. "We've analyzed all available data on the Hollow," she begins. "Their movement patterns, their energy signatures, the residual traces left behind after their attacks, and we've found something." The chamber goes silent. I lean forward. "They're not invincible," Dr. Tanaka says. "They're incredibly advanced, yes. Their technology is beyond anything we've ever encountered, but they're not magic. They're not gods. They're physical beings operating within the laws of physics, just laws we don't fully understand yet.
We threw everything we had at them, I hear myself saying. 12,000 ships, every weapon in our arsenal. Nothing worked.
With respect, Ambassador, your weapons were designed to fight other Concord species. Energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, conventional explosives, all operating on principles the Hollow have clearly mastered and countered. She pulls up a holographic display. But there are other principles, other approaches, things your civilizations never developed because you never needed to.
Admiral Chen steps forward. Show him.
Dr. Tanaka manipulates the display. I see a schematic, something I don't recognize. It looks almost organic, a network of interconnected nodes surrounding a central core. This is a distributed weapons platform, she explains. Not a single ship or fleet, but a network of autonomous units that can coordinate across light years. Each unit is tiny, barely larger than your hand, but together they form a collective intelligence capable of adaptation in real time.
Adaptation?
The Hollows counter whatever you throw at them, David explains from somewhere behind me. So you have to throw something that changes faster than they can counter. Something that learns from every failed attempt and tries something new within milliseconds.
We call it the swarm, Dr. Tanaka says. It's based on principles we developed decades ago for medical nanobots, tiny machines that work together to fight diseases inside the human body. We've scaled it up significantly.
I stare at the display. You are proposing to fight an enemy that destroyed 12,000 warships with medical technology? We're proposing to fight them with the same stubbornness that let a single-celled organism evolve into a human being, Admiral Chen says. Life adapts, Ambassador. It's messy, it's inefficient, it's slow, but it's relentless. The Hollow have never faced anything like that. They've swept through civilizations that fought them with logic, with strategy, with the best their cultures could produce. They've never faced something that refuses to stop evolving.
And you believe this will work?
Silence. The humans exchange glances.
No, Admiral Chen admits. We don't believe anything. We don't have enough data to believe. But we're gonna try anyway, because that's what we do. That's all we've ever done.
I think of Ambassador Thalos, of his warning ignored by the Council, of his faith placed in a species that had no reason to earn it.
What do you need from us? I ask.
Everything, Chen says. All your data, all your technology, all your remaining ships and personnel. We need the Concord, what's left of it, to work with us. Not as subordinates, not as allies, but as one civilization. No more boundaries, no more secrets, no more hierarchy.
You are asking us to surrender our autonomy. I'm asking you to survive. Her eyes are steady. I'm asking you to trust us. I know that's hard. I know we've given you no reason to, but right now, trust is the only resource that matters.
I think of my daughter, my grandchildren, the 17 seconds of static and screaming. You have it, I say. Whatever you need, whatever it takes.
The humans do not celebrate. They simply nod and return to work.
The next weeks are a blur of activity that defies description. Human ships arrive at the Europa station, not warships but construction vessels, science platforms, mobile factories. They come from every corner of human space, bearing equipment and personnel and raw materials. The station, which once seemed adequate, becomes crowded, then cramped, then positively claustrophobic.
And still they come.
I learned that humanity,
for all its apparent division, has protocols for exactly this situation, something they call Contingency Omega, a plan developed decades ago for the eventuality of facing an extinction-level threat. The plan was never invoked, never tested, until now.
And it works. Resources flow from every human world. Mining operations that were dormant for years spring back to life. Factories that produced consumer goods switch overnight to military production. Scientists from competing nations share research freely, abandoning decades of secrecy and rivalry in the face of annihilation.
I watch, and I do not understand.
How? I asked David one evening as we observe a fleet of human cargo ships arriving with materials from the asteroid belt. How do you do this? Your species cannot even agree on how to govern a single planet. You have wars, famines, inequalities that should have torn you apart generations ago. And yet, when threatened, you move as one. David smiles. It is a tired smile, but genuine. That's the thing about humans, Ambassador. We fight each other constantly. About politics, about resources, about ideas. We're terrible at agreeing on things. But when something threatens all of us, when something from outside tries to end our story, he shakes his head. That's when you see what we really are.
And what is that?
One family. Dysfunctional, messy, constantly at each other's throats. But family. And we don't let anyone hurt our family but us.
I think about that for a long time.
The Valori are not like this. We resolved our internal conflicts millennia ago, subsuming individual identity into collective harmony. We have no nations, no factions, no competing ideologies. We are unified, peaceful, orderly.
And we are dying.
Humanity is fractured, chaotic, constantly at war with itself. And they are building weapons that might save us all.
Perhaps there is a lesson there. Perhaps unity is not strength. Perhaps strength is the ability to fight together despite everything that drives you apart. I begin to understand what Ambassador Thalos saw. On the 42nd day, Admiral Chen summons me to the command center. The room is different now. Larger displays, more personnel, a palpable hum of tension in the air. Something has changed. They're here, she says without preamble. The Hollow. They've entered the outer reaches of human space. We detected them 4 hours ago. My blood runs cold. 4 hours. In 4 hours, they could have already... They hit a listening post on the edge of the Kuiper Belt, she continues. Unmanned, no casualties. But now they know we're here. What will you do? She meets my eyes. What we've been preparing for. On the main display, I see something I have never seen before. Humanity's true fleet. Not the handful of patrol ships they had shown the Concorde, not the modest vessels they used for trade and exploration. This is something else entirely. Thousands of ships, tens of thousands, more than the entire Concorde fleet at its height. They pour out of hidden bases and orbital stations from moon facilities and asteroid fortresses that no alien sensor had ever detected. Carriers and battleships, destroyers and dreadnoughts, each one bristling with weapons I cannot identify. You hid this, I say, and my voice is barely a whisper. All these years, you hid this from us. Yes. Why? Admiral Chen does not look away. Because we remembered what happened every time one nation on Earth revealed its true military strength to another.
because we knew how the Concord looked at us, as primitive upstarts, as potential threats, as children to be managed. If we had shown you what we were capable of, you would have seen us as a danger. You would have united against us, and we weren't ready for that war.
You expected us to attack you?
We expected to have to defend ourselves. We always expect that. It's in our nature. She gestures to the display. But now we don't have to hide anymore. Now we have a common enemy. Now we can show you what humanity really is.
I watched the fleet assembling. It is vast beyond comprehension, a tide of metal and fire that dwarfs anything I have ever seen. And amid the warships, I see something else. Clouds of tiny objects, barely visible on the display, swarming around the larger vessels like insects around a herd of beasts. The swarm. Trillions of tiny machines, each one a fragment of a greater intelligence, each one adapting, learning, evolving in real time.
We're going to engage them at the heliopause, Admiral Chen says. The edge of your sun's influence, far enough from any populated world that, if we fail, civilians will have time to evacuate.
And if you succeed?
She almost smiles. Then we'll have bought the galaxy some time, maybe enough to figure out how to win this war for good.
You don't expect to survive.
I don't expect anything, Ambassador. I just do my job.
There is no fear in her voice, no despair, just acceptance, quiet and absolute. She has made peace with death, not because she wants to die, but because she has decided that some things are worth dying for. I think of my daughter, my grandchildren. I think of the 17 seconds, and I understand for the first time what it means to be human. It means refusing to stop. The battle begins 12 hours later.
I watch from the Europa Station's command center, surrounded by human officers and the handful of Valori survivors who chose to stay. The display shows everything, every ship, every missile, every swarm unit. It is beautiful and terrible, a symphony of destruction played out against the cold darkness of space.
The holo emerge from nowhere, as they always do. One moment, empty space. The next, a presence, vast, dark, incomprehensible. They do not look like ships. They do not look like anything I can describe. They are wrongness given form, holes in the fabric of reality that devour everything they touch. The human fleet does not hesitate.
The first wave of attacks is conventional. Missiles, energy beams, kinetic projectiles. They splash against the hollow like rain against a mountain, absorbed without effect. I have seen this before. I watched 9,000 Concord ships die against this same implacable enemy.
But the humans do not stop.
The second wave is the swarm. Trillions of tiny machines, barely visible even on enhanced sensors, rushing toward the hollow in a vast, coordinated cloud. They hit the enemy like a wave of locusts, latching onto surfaces, burrowing into crevices, analyzing, learning, adapting.
The hollow respond. They emit pulses of energy that should destroy the swarm, and they do in vast numbers. Billions of machines die in an instant. But the survivors learn. They adapt. They become resistant to the pulse, and they keep coming.
They're taking damage, someone says, and I cannot tell if it is human or Valori. The hollow, they're actually taking damage. On the display, I see it. Small portions of the hollow flickering, degrading, coming apart at the edges. It is minimal, insignificant even, but it is damage. For the first time, these unkillable monsters are being hurt.
Admiral Chen's voice is steady over the comm. All units, continue assault. Focus swarm concentration on damaged areas. Don't let up.
The battle rages for hours. Ships die, human ships, hundreds of them. The Hollow are still overwhelming, still vastly more powerful than anything we can throw at them. But they are not invincible. They can be hurt. They can be slowed. And humanity does not stop. I watched admirals and captains give their lives without hesitation. I watched young officers take command when their superiors fall. I watched the swarm evolve in real time, developing new tactics, new capabilities, new ways to hurt an enemy that has never been hurt before. It is terrifying. It is magnificent. It is human. At the battle's climax, Admiral Chen's flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Perseverance, takes a direct hit from the Hollow. The ship breaks apart, its hull crumpling like paper. In the final seconds before destruction, Chen's voice comes over the comm, calm and clear.
Command transfers to Vice Admiral Morrison. Continue the assault. Do not let them through.
And then, silence. I expect despair. I expect the human fleet to break, to scatter, to flee. That is what the Concord fleet did when our command structure was destroyed.
Instead, Vice Admiral Morrison's voice comes over the comm, steady as steel. You heard her. Continue the assault.
And they do. Ship after ship, life after life, throwing themselves against an impossible enemy, not because they expect to win, not because they think they will survive, but because they refuse to stop. The battle lasts 17 hours. I learn later that this is the longest engagement the Hollow have ever experienced. Usually their assaults end in minutes, hours at most. When it finally ends, the human fleet is devastated. More than half their ships are destroyed. Millions are dead. The survivors are battered, broken, barely functional. But the Hollow have retreated. For the first time in recorded history, they have turned away. Not destroyed, not even significantly weakened, but stopped, held, forced to reconsider. I find David Okonkwo in the aftermath. He is injured, a gash across his forehead, one arm in a sling, but alive. He is coordinating rescue operations for survivors floating in escape pods throughout the battlefield.
You did it, I say, and I can barely form the words. You actually did it.
He looks at me with eyes that have seen too much. We bought time, he says. That's all. They'll be back, stronger, more prepared.
But you stopped them. No one has ever.
We showed them we can hurt them, he interrupts. That's not the same as defeating them. The real war is just beginning. He turns back to his work, then pauses. But yeah, we stopped them. Today, at least. Today was enough.
I stand in silence, watching the rescue operations continue, watching humans pull each other from the wreckage, watching them mourn their dead and tend to their wounded, watching them refuse to give up.
Ambassador Thalos was right. We should never have dismissed them. We should never have ignored his warning. Because humanity is not just another species. They are something the galaxy has never seen before. They are survivors, not because they are stronger or smarter or more advanced, but because they do not know how to stop. Because they look at impossible odds and say, so what? Because they face extinction and treat it as a challenge.
The Hollow will return. David is right about that. The war is not over. It has barely begun, and the galaxy will need every ounce of strength it can muster to survive what is coming.
But for the first time since the Hollow appeared, I believe we might have a chance.
Because we have humanity.
And humanity does not know how to stop.
3 months pass. The Hollow do not return. Not yet. But the galaxy knows they will. Refugee fleets from a dozen species pour into human space, seeking the only protection that has proven effective. The Concord, or what remains of it, formally dissolves. In its place, something new emerges, the Terran-led coalition.
I am present at the signing ceremony. It is held on Earth itself, my first visit to humanity's homeworld. The planet is not what I expected. Beautiful, yes, but scarred. I see the marks of ancient wars, of environmental disasters barely averted, of a species that has been fighting itself and its world since before it had language.
And yet they persist. They thrive. They look at the scars and say, "We did that. We survived that. And we will survive what comes next."
The ceremony is held at a place called Geneva, in a building that once housed an earlier attempt at human unity. The symbolism is intentional. Humanity wants us to understand they have tried this before. They have failed before, and they keep trying anyway. Representatives from 17 species signed the Coalition Charter: Valori, Rilari, Kethar, survivors from across the galaxy, united not by choice, but by necessity. And at the center of it all, guiding the proceedings with quiet confidence, are the humans.
They do not gloat. They do not demand recognition. They simply lead by example, by action, by refusing to give up even when giving up would be the rational choice.
I think of my grandfather, High Counselor Mathis, who dismissed Ambassador Thelos's warning so many years ago. He is dead now, consumed along with Valor Prime. He never knew how wrong he was. He never understood what humanity truly was. Perhaps that is for the best. The understanding would have broken him. After the ceremony, I find a quiet moment alone in a garden outside the conference hall. The sun is setting, an event I have witnessed on 1,000 worlds, but never quite like this. Earth's sun has a particular quality, a warmth that feels almost alive. I understand, in that moment, why humans became what they are. This star, this world, forged them in its image.
A woman approaches. It takes me a moment to recognize her. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, the historian who so affected Ambassador Thelos. She is old now, over 90, but her eyes are still sharp. She moves with the aid of a cane, but her presence is undimmed.
"Ambassador Kethris," she says, "my grandson told me about you. May I sit?"
I gesture to the bench beside me. She lowers herself carefully, then gazes at the sunset with the appreciation of someone who knows she may not see many more. "David says you've been asking questions," she says, "about humanity, about what makes us different." I have spent months trying to understand, I admit, and I am no closer than when I started. She laughs softly. Don't feel bad. We've spent millennia trying to understand ourselves. We're still working on it.
"Ambassador Thelos believed in you," I say. "He saw something in humanity that convinced him you could save us. I have seen your fleets, your technology, your courage, but I still do not understand what he saw. What makes you, you?"
Dr. Okonkwo is quiet for a long moment. The last rays of sunlight paint the clouds in shades of orange and gold.
Do you know what I told Ambassador Thalos when he asked me that same question? She says finally. He never told us. He kept it to himself. She nods. I told him a story, a true story, about a human named Viktor Frankl. He was a psychiatrist, a healer of minds, who lived during one of the worst periods in human history. He was imprisoned in places called concentration camps, where millions of people were systematically murdered for no reason other than hatred.
I have read about this period. It is difficult to comprehend that a species could do such things to itself and still survive. Viktor Frankl lost his wife, his parents, his brother, Dr. Okonkwo continues. He suffered in ways that should have destroyed him, but he survived. And when he emerged, broken and alone, he wrote a book. Do you know what he said in that book? I shake my head. He said that humans can endure any what if they have a why. He said that meaning, purpose, is more powerful than any suffering, that as long as we have something to live for, we can survive anything. She looks at me, and her eyes are fierce despite her age. That is what makes us different, Ambassador. Not our technology, not our tactics, not our numbers or our strength. It is our capacity to choose meaning, to decide in the face of annihilation that something matters, and to fight for it.
No. But what meaning could be strong enough to face the hollow? They are destruction incarnate. They cannot be reasoned with, negotiated with, understood. And yet you're still here, she interrupts gently. And so are we. The hollow destroyed your homeworld. They killed billions of your people. They took everything from you. And still you crossed the galaxy to find help. Still you chose to hope, to try, to fight. Why? I open my mouth to answer, but no words come. Why did I come? Why did I choose to seek out humanity instead of accepting death? What meaning drove me across the stars when everything I loved was gone? And then I understand. My grandchildren, the ones who were learning to sing, they are gone, but the memory of them lives in me. The hope that somewhere, somehow, there are other Valori children who might live to learn songs of their own. The refusal to let my species end in silence and darkness. That is my meaning. That is my why. I think I understand, I say softly. Dr. Okonkwo smiles. Ambassador Thalos understood too. That's why he left his warning. That's why he believed in us. Because he saw that we are not so different, humans and Valori. We both know how to find meaning in darkness. We both know how to refuse despair. She rises slowly, leaning on her cane. The hollow will come again, and they may still destroy us, all of us, every species in this coalition. But they will not destroy our meaning. They cannot consume our why. And as long as that survives, so does hope. She leaves me alone in the garden, watching the last light fade from the sky. Stars emerge, one by one, the same stars that have watched over Earth for billions of years, the same stars that will watch over whatever comes next. I think of Ambassador Thalos, who saw humanity's potential before anyone else. I think of Admiral Chen, who gave her life without hesitation. I think of David Okonkwo, who continues to fight because his grandmother taught him what it means to be human. And I think of my grandchildren, who will never grow up, but whose memory gives me the strength to continue.
The war is not over. It may never truly be over. The hollow are out there, somewhere, regrouping and adapting. Other threats will emerge. Other extinctions will threaten. The universe is vast and indifferent and full of dangers we cannot imagine.
But we are not alone anymore.
We have humanity. And humanity has taught us the most important lesson of all, that survival is not about strength or intelligence or technology. It is about will, about meaning, about the stubborn, irrational, beautiful refusal to stop fighting for what matters. Ambassador Thalos warned us, do not provoke humanity. Our leaders did not listen. And in their failure to listen, they gave us something unexpected, something precious, something that might yet save us all. They gave us humanity as allies, as teachers, as friends. I rise from the bench and walk back toward the conference hall. There is work to do, always more work. Fleets to rebuild, strategies to develop, refugees to shelter. The coalition is young and fragile, and the enemy is ancient and terrible. But for the first time in my long life, I am not afraid, because I have seen what a species forged in hardship can do. I have seen them face impossible odds and refuse to yield. I have seen them sacrifice everything, their ships, their leaders, their lives, for the chance to give the galaxy one more day. And I have seen them do all of this not with arrogance or pride, but with quiet determination. Not with speeches or declarations, but with action. Not with promises of victory, but with the simple, stubborn insistence that they will not go quietly into the darkness. The stars above Earth are the same stars that shine on 1,000 other worlds. They do not care about our struggles, our triumphs, our defeats. They simply burn, patient and eternal. But we care. We small, fragile, mortal creatures who look up at those stars and dare to dream. We care about each other. We fight for each other. We refuse to let each other fall. That is what humanity taught us. That is what will save us. Not weapons or technology, not fleets or fortresses. Just the simple, unstoppable power of beings who have decided that survival matters, that life matters, that each other matters. The hollow cannot consume that. No enemy can.
Because meaning is not physical. It cannot be harvested or destroyed. It lives in the choices we make, the sacrifices we offer, the hope we refuse to abandon.
I enter the conference hall. David Okonkwo sees me and raises a hand in greeting. Around him, humans and aliens work together, planning the next phase of defense, the next phase of resistance, the next phase of survival. Ambassador, he says, ready to get back to work? I look at him, this young human who carries his grandmother's wisdom and his species' unbreakable spirit. I look at the others, bent over displays and documents, arguing and collaborating and pushing forward. I look at the future, uncertain and dangerous and full of possibility. Yes, I say, I am ready. And I am. For the first time since the Hollow took everything from me, I am truly ready. Because I am not fighting alone. Because I am part of something larger than myself. Because I have found my meaning, not in vengeance or despair, but in hope. In the stubborn, beautiful, impossible hope that tomorrow might be better than today. That is the human gift, That is what Ambassador Thal'Vex saw.
And that is why the warning mattered. Not because humanity was a threat to be avoided, but because humanity was a force to be respected. A species that, when provoked, does not merely fight back. It transcends. It adapts. It becomes something greater than the sum of its parts.
Our leaders did not listen. They dismissed the warning. They provoked humanity through arrogance and neglect.
And now, because of that provocation, humanity has risen. Not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as partners. As the unexpected heart of a coalition that might yet save the galaxy.
The irony is not lost on me.
We warned ourselves to leave humanity alone, and in our failure to heed that warning, we accidentally ensured our survival.
The universe works in strange ways.
I take my place beside David and begin to work. The stars continue their eternal vigil above us. The hollow lurk somewhere in the darkness, patient and hungry.
But we are here. We are together. We are humanity and Valori and Relari and Cathar and a dozen other species, united by necessity and bound by hope.
We are the coalition.
And we will not stop.
Not today, not tomorrow, not ever.
Because that is what it means to be alive, to struggle, to suffer, to lose everything and still find the strength to begin again.
Ambassador Thal'Vex understood this. Admiral Chen understood this. Dr. Okonkwo understands this. And now, finally, I understand it too. The story of the universe is not written in the burning of stars or the turning of galaxies. It is written in the choices of small beings who look at the darkness and choose to light a candle. It is written in the defiance of those who refuse to accept that the night must last forever. Humanity taught us this. They taught us with their blood and their courage and their stubborn, infuriating, magnificent refusal to give up. And we learned. Too late for some. Too late for my daughter and my grandchildren and the billions who died before we understood. But not too late for the rest of us. Not too late for hope. The work continues. The war continues. The struggle continues. And somewhere in the quiet spaces between the stars, I like to think that Ambassador Thal'Vex is watching, seeing his faith justified, seeing his warning finally understood. Do not provoke humanity. Our leaders did not listen. And because of that, against all odds, we might yet survive. The universe is strange and beautiful. And terrible.
And we are still here.
Together. Fighting. Hoping. Living. That is the human way. And now it is ours as well.